horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and this is something I meant to do quite some time ago because I made one video, probably back the first year I had this channel, and I didn't really have too many, but I was happy with what I had. And then sometime later I said I'm waiting for this one other title to come in. Now I was going to do an update video, and I don't think I ever did. But that is a collection video of my horror documentaries. Now, I'm a huge fan of documentaries, especially ones on horror, whether it be individual films or a series or a genre or an era. I mean, I'm a huge sucker for special features on DVDs and Blu-rays. Then, of course, I have my documentary collection of true crime and serial killers, assorted ones on Batman. Those are mostly through special features. But I think the biggest collection I have, maybe next to serial killers, is the horror genre in general. Now, I don't remember how many I had back then when I did that first video, but I think I must have at least 2.5 times that now. So, yeah, let's get into it. Of course, first of all, you have the two, crown jewels of this collection. And I just saw a thing for part 3. It's going to be the final part, but In Search of Darkness, part 1 and part 2 on Blu-ray. My absolute favorite horror documentaries right here. And yeah, it is just on the 80s, but the 80s definitely deserves it. It is the biggest, decade for horror. So part 3, I will definitely be getting when that comes out. I'll pay for the, definitely gonna, I'm sure those will go on sale this October, like it did the last 2 years, but In Search of Darkness 1 and 2. And then probably my favorite documentary that I have on one individual film, and that is Just Desserts, The Making of Creepshow. Because for the longest time, you could only get this on the German release of Creepshow, the German Blu-ray. This is such a great documentary, very in-depth on one of my all-time favorite films. Definitely a top 10 favorite film. The movie that got me into horror. Great documentary. Highly recommend this if you love documentaries and Creepshow. And then we have, I don't know if this is everything that Shudder has. I thought I had more from Shudder. I know In Search of Darkness played on Shudder, but for Blu-ray we have Leap of Faith, which I actually have not watched this yet. But I do believe it is just everything Friedkin did for the making of The Exorcist. Again, another one of my favorite films. How long is this? By 104 minutes? So, Shudder original Leap of Faith. Another Shudder original horror noir, which I did watch this. This was a very, very good documentary. Just the history of African-American actors, characters, all the stereotypes, black guy always dies first, really that kind of aspect. Spent a lot of time on characters like Blackula, and then the evolution of that into sort of the Jordan Peele era of horror. And you'll have like two people sitting together in like a theater setting, kind of talking back and forth about whatever the topic is at that moment. And of course, my favorite of that is with Ken Foray and Keith David sitting together. Very, very interesting. And then the last Shudder original I have is Cursed Films. Very interesting. Except the episode on The Omen didn't really go into as much as, say, on the special features of The Omen. But yeah, Poltergeist, Omen, Exorcist, The Crow, and the Twilight Zone movie. So yeah. I'm not a very superstitious person, but I do enjoy watching stuff like this. I do find it very interesting. Interesting is a word that will probably pop up quite a bit on this video. This is fairly new. I just picked this up to check it out, but that is Eli Roth's History of Horror. And I actually enjoyed it. It doesn't have the list of episodes on the back. But, you know, you got a variety of people that appear, like Greg Nicotero, Rob Zombie, Stephen King, Slash, Tarantino, Linda Blair. And it's sort of like each episode is its own thing. Like, there was zombie, there was ghosts and paranormal. I think there was 5 episodes. Yeah, 4 hours, 54 minutes. So there was 5 episodes. Pretty sure season 2 is either airing, has already aired, or about to come out. But Eli Roth's History of Horror. This I found for very cheap on Mercari, and this I did have a lot of fun with. Herschel Gordon Lewis, the godfather of gore. It's pretty much him and people that he's worked with going through his entire career. I do have a collection of Herschel Gordon Lewis films. I have Taste of Blood, Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, Color Me Blood Red, Wizard of Gore, and Gore Girls. I think there's only 2 or 3 I don't have, and I've reviewed all but Taste of Blood. But this was a really fun one to listen to, or watch. Just how we talk about going to different grocery stores and butcher shops to get his effects. Definitely recommend this if you're into the low budget, campy, early splatter era. Oh, and then the last Blu-ray I have, of course, Crystal Lake Memories. It was 7.5, 8 hours, 400 minutes. So, yeah, about 8 hours of just very in-depth. Every Friday the 13th film and the series, TV series. And for how long it is, it goes at a great pace. Same with In Search of Darkness. I loved this when I first saw it. And I've gone back and rewatched it a few times. It's something I can watch in one sitting. This came with the Blu-ray and the DVD. But, you know, just very steady pace and information that I can just pop it in and watch it. And then this is, I think there's a part 2 to this, but part 2 is more like the action sort of aspect. But Video Nasties, just a documentary on the phenomenon that was the banning and criminalization of certain movies in England in the 80s. And I've always loved how they changed that to Moral Panic, but that's why I got this as a t-shirt, just because I always loved the design of it. And disc 3 is, disc 2 is 39 titles, trailers for 39 titles that were actually prosecuted and banned. Then disc 3 is the trailers for the 33 titles that were initially banned but acquitted. So you have the actual hour-and-a-half documentary on the whole Video Nasty movement. Disc 2 is 39 trailers. There's 333 trailers. And yeah, part 2 for the definitive guide is more like the action film, which I'm not very interested in. This has all the horror stuff on it. And then there's, I think it's called VHS Nasties, which is more, which I think is part of the series. I don't have that. But, yeah, that's always, and I should go through and do reviews for more of these, because I think I've only reviewed the 2 In Search of Darkness, and that might have been it, actually. I think those 2 are the only ones I reviewed. I could be wrong, though. 100 Years of Horror, the complete collection. No, that's exactly what it is. It's 5 episodes that all have different different aspects of what were big throughout that history. Like disc 1 is like Dracula, Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like the silent era. Disc 4 is like the gore, slashers, aliens. Then disc 5 is like zombies, mad doctors, man-made monsters. And it's hosted by Christopher Lee. I do have another version of this that I think is a little bit longer and it has some more stuff on it. But that I loaned to a friend. So actually I have 2 different copies of it. But glad for that. And then we have one of my favorite documentaries altogether, and that is Going to Pieces, Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film. I love this. It talks about how huge Halloween Friday the 13th was, all the imitators that came in its wake, and then the fatigue about midway through the decade, and then just the self-referential, self-parody of the late 80s, the death of the slasher, then the sort of revival with Scream, and then the Scream of imitators, like the sort of CW slashers of the late 90s. And then it goes more into like the remake era with Chainsaw Massacre in 03. I've seen this a bunch of times. This is one I'll just pop in and watch. Flesh and Blood, the Hammer Heritage of Horror, all about the history of Hammer horror, which this was written, directed, and produced by Ted Newsom, who, if you go back to my video, I think it's called like A Funny Real Story, about how I made an ass of myself on Facebook with someone who's actually done stuff with horror. That's Ted Newsom. He's directed this, and he also, I believe he directed this series as well. So, yeah, I made an ass of myself to the writer, director, producer of these. But yeah, so that's all about Hammer. I know there's another one about Hammer that I do want to get. IFC's The American Nightmare. More about just celebrating some of the bigger, most influential films of the 70s and 80s, including Night of the Living Dead, which was 68. I think I've watched this once, but I do enjoy this. And of course it has Romero, Hooper, Landis, Craven. American Nightmares. And now we're getting more into the documentaries I have that are either on one film or series, like More Brains, A Return to the Living Dead. This is all just about the first movie, not the whole series of Return to the Living Dead. But Return to the Living Dead is probably a top 20 favorite of mine, and I loved this documentary. Very in-depth, like, very close to the Creepshow one. But I had a lot of fun with this, of course. more brains. And then from the same makers of Crystal Lake Memories, we have Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street Legacy, which they were supposed to do one on Hellraiser. I don't know if that's the Hellraiser one that's out or if that was made by someone else. But this is 4 hours, just as in-depth as Crystal Lake Memories. I do like this. This came out when the remake came out. I enjoy it, but not near as much as Crystal Lake Memories, but that is, his name was Jason. This is more scatterbrained. Like, there's different topics about Friday the 13th. Like, there's one on the best kills, best final girls, the different makeup effects and actors that played Jason. It's got more random people and fans in this that are being interviewed, like director Adam Green, James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd. Not just people associated with Friday the 13th. It's okay, but it's not one of my favorites. Kind of like Halloween 25 Years of Terror. This one's more chronological, but this stops after a resurrection. I would like to see one from the makers of this and Crystal Lake Memories do a Halloween one. But I still enjoy this, of course. And then the last one I have, which is of the whole series, but it talks it's only 87 minutes, and it goes very little, if anything at all, about the 80s TV show and the 98 remake, and that is Psycho Legacy. Of course, Psycho, third favorite film of all time. I actually do like Psycho 2. 3 is okay. I actually liked 4. But, yeah. I looked for this one for the longest time, and then I saw it without looking for it, and I was like, definitely getting that. I think I paid full price for it. Psycho Legacy. So there you have it. That is my complete horror documentary collection. The only other ones I can think of would be In Search of Darkness 3 when that comes out. But maybe at some point I'll have to do a video that has like the best documentaries as special features. Like John Carpenter's The Thing, the making of that. The Exorcist that has the Fear of God documentary. The Omen has a very great making of documentary. I might have to do that sometime, but for now, and then these I pulled by accident. Like this is Monsters Among Us. This is more, not necessarily films. It does go into films a little bit, but more just overall history of vampires, undead, ghosts, witchcraft, werewolves, stuff like that. And then this, I thought this was going to be more strictly like 70s exploitation. I mean, we have Night of the Living Dead and Driller Killer, but a lot of it is modern shot on video movies, previews and coming attractions. Which was this put out by, no, I was going to see if it was at SRS or whoever's putting out those shot on video DVDs like Garden Tool Massacre. I actually don't even think I finished this because it was all more so modern shot on video movies. I actually thought it was going to be more of some documentary, but not really. It says awesome way to relive the 80s, but a lot of them are like early 2000s. And then I don't know why I have this with those, but the Faces of Death collection. It's not even a real documentary. But I was supposed to review these when I did my extreme horror marathon, and I never did. I've wanted this since I was a kid, and I finally got it. back sometime whenever I did that marathon. But I don't know why I kept this with my documentaries. It's weird. But there, that is my complete horror documentary collection. I hope you enjoyed. I do recommend all of these, by the way. Maybe not so much, but I do recommend all these very, very much. So, thank you for watching.